You're here to take my place. All I could do was scream as I was dragged into the game. You are watching A Twisted Tale from the Sus Box. Please proceed with caution, drop us a like, and let's dive into today's story. I had always loved video games and had a special soft spot for the Super Mario game series. Maybe it was because of how many memories I had of playing games alongside my cousins as children, cheering as I helped them defeat the villains and save Princess Peach. The image of Mario with his twirled mustache and red jumpsuit, the red hat jammed on top of his head, was one I could recognize anywhere. When I spotted the game in an antique shop that held secondhand goods, it was nostalgia that had me reaching for it and exchanging bills for the game. It was old, a video game disc to be inserted in an old Nintendo, the type that looked like a computer. I wasn't annoyed, although I had to dig through the box in the attic where my parents had kept all of my childhood devices. The thrill at being able to live the same life as my childhood had me eagerly waiting for the Nintendo to charge. Pushing the game into the back of it, the screen that greeted me when it loaded up was slightly different from that of the game screens that I had seen as a kid. Mario was staring back at me from the screen, a smile that seemed forced on his lips as the speech bubble over his mouth said the words, "Hello, it's me, Mario!" And the character was in a forest instead of the usual streets he ran across. When I pressed play, the game loaded instantly. Mario looked at me asking, "What is your name?" I was surprised and kind of unnerved because of how black his eyes were, like two empty holes that you couldn't pull yourself out of, and because the game had never asked me for a name, unless you wanted to save your progress. Still, I typed in my name because I thought the game must have been an older version that required it. Mario echoed my name in his rustic voice before he cheerily said, "Let's go!" and started running through the forest. Like in most Mario games, he jumped and let out sound effects as he chased after coins. When he saw the monsters that approached him, though, he tensed, something like fear flashing across his digital expression. The monsters that were headed towards him were creepy, in fact, so creepy that I wondered if this game was a parody instead. But it couldn't be because Mario games were trademarked. Right? Feeling a prickle of uneasiness, I continued to play, swallowing when Mario got hit and instead of glitching, turned a violet shade of red. Blood pooled down below him, staining his already red uniform. And I wondered if his jumpsuit had always been red. "Don't be ridiculous," I said to myself, laughing nervously and thinking it was a fluke. But the more monsters we encountered, the more blood. Mario, pain flickering over his pixelated expression. It made me nauseous and I wanted to stop playing, but as if hearing my thoughts, Mario turned to look at me, directly at me, as if he was looking through the screen, a grim smile on his lips. "I'm growing tired." His voice was almost like a pained groan. "But we have to continue, don't we?" He turned back to the monsters, and I felt goosebumps break out over my skin as he got hit after hit, his sunny face replaced with bruises and scratches, his jumps now looking more and more exhausted. Now that Mario had talked, it looked like he'd never stop. He'd stomp and groan, glare at the monsters, and kick kapow shells at them, so hard the monsters screamed in agony before fleeing into the forest. The effects of the game were insane, something that startled me considering how old the game looked. The screeches of pain from the monsters sounded so real, ringing in my empty apartment so loudly I shivered, and the blood across Mario's skin was a tender shade that looked like it was real. It was honestly pretty frightening, the kind of thing I was never into. What was creepiest was how Mario would occasionally turn to look at me, a smile stretched across his lips, as he asked things like, "Is watching me fun? I am growing tired of this. It's been so long since I've seen humans." Or, "Will you take my place?" The moments he called my name were the worst, my stomach gurgling in protest with how tight my nerves were tying into. This Mario wasn't my Mario. My Mario was a hero, saving Princess Peach with a smile, facing Bowser with a determined glare, laughing with his brother Luigi. This Mario was worn away by time, exhausted from jumping and dragging himself to the finish line. When blood splattered across the screen, I dropped the Nintendo, filled with disgust and horror. "That's it," I muttered, resisting the urge to throw up. "I give up." I stiffened when something cold touched my wrist, slowly turning to the device, where a hand was poking through the screen, fingers wrapped around my hand.
"I've been waiting a long time for this."
Mario smiled at me, voice dark and gritty. Up close, I could see the blood staining his tan skin, the cut under his eyebrow leaking sluggishly. He wasn't Mario, only somebody that looked like him. I realized when I registered this unfamiliar curl of his mustache and the grotesque aged skin of his wrist.
I
remembered his words.
My place.
You
to take my place.
All I could do was scream as I was dragged into the game.
Since I've seen the humans.
And finally figured out that this game was instead a gruesome trap.
You're here to take my place.
All I could do was scream as I was dragged into the game. Thank you for watching another sus tale from the Sus Box. We hope that you have found that truly terrifying. Let us know in the comments below, what would you do if you came across this cursed version of the game? Drop us a like, and feel free to check out other videos from the Sus Box.